Hi, welcome. Nice to see everybody. Can you hear me okay?
You're a little wobbly, Sumedha.
I'm a little wobbly. Okay.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Okay. All right. I'll move a bit closer and that might help. There we go. Right. Okay. So let's just take a minute or two to ground and arrive together as everyone's arriving. Maybe taking some deep breaths if we need to, or feeling the earth. Feeling the sense of our own heart arriving and everyone gathering here in Sangha. So welcome. Lovely to see people I know, and for anybody I don't know, I'm Sumedha. And I'd also like to introduce Jilna, who's our Zoom host for today, which is it's a really great support. So thank you for being here, Jilna. And yeah, just to say for anybody who hasn't been to one of these sessions, that the main session lasts an hour, and within that there'll be like some chanting and a guided meditation and a teaching or reflection. And then after the hour, there's another 15 minutes or so where we can stay on together and share or ask questions if you'd like to. So yeah, so let's start with some chanting. So Jilna's going to post the chanting book in the chat. Thanks, Jilna. That's great. And as many of you know, I really like to chant the refuges and precepts. So the refuges like the Buddha, that which is awake, and the Dharma, the teaching or nature, and Sangha, which is what we're experiencing here, and also the deeper sense of community that we're part of. So there's something very beautiful and important for me about bringing our mind back to remembering these possibilities in our being, and also the precepts, these mirrors to how we may want to be relating in this life. So we'll start on page 3 with the refuges and precepts. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Tatyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Tatyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the training to refrain from intentionally taking life. Adinadana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the training to refrain from taking that which is not given. Kame Sumichachara Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the training to refrain from misuse of sexuality and the senses. Musawada Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the training to refrain from speech that is false, divisive, harsh, and meaningless. Sura Meraya Majjapamadhatana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the training to refrain from intoxication which leads to carelessness. And then we can go to page 4. Thank you, Jilna. And the link to the chanting book is in the chat for anyone who's just joined. So page 4, recollection of the triple jewel. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijacharana sampano sugato lokavidu anutaro purisa dhamma sarati sata Dewa manusanam buddho bhagavati sawakato bhagavata dhammo sanditiko akariko ehipasiko panayiko Pachatang veditabo vinyuhiti supatipano bhagavato sawakasango ujupatipano bhagavato sawakasango nyayapatipano bhagavato sawakasango Samichi patipano bhagavato sawakasango yadidam chatari purisa yugani yata purisa pugala esa bhagavato sawakasango ahuneyo pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anutarang Punya Ketam Lokasati. And then let's go to the reflections on universal well-being. Which is a teaching chant. It's a reflection on the 4 divine abidings or boundless qualities of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy and equanimity. So page 7, the reflections on universal well-being. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and its results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs. And then let's end with the Great Compassion Mantra, so the invocation to Kuan Yin, the Bodhisattva of Compassion. I think that's on page 13. I don't have a page number, but it's the Great Compassion Mantra. And it starts with an invocation, and then we can chant or you can listen as you feel comfortable. Namo Dabi Quan Shu Yin Pu Sa Quan Shu Yin Pu Sa Namo Dabi Quan Shu Yin Pu Sa Namo Hala Danno Dolaye, Namo Haliye Polu Jadi Shabolaye Puti Satopaye Moha Satopaye Moha Jailuni Jaye Nan Sapalafaye Sodano Dashi Namo Shijiri Toyimang Liye Paluji Disha Fola Lung Topa Namo Nola Jinsha Shiri Moha Pa Isapa Toda Shapang Ashayan Sapa Sado Namo Pasado Namo Pache Mofata Doda Jadonan Palushi Nujai Di Jaila Di Yeshini Moha Puti Sato Sapa Sapa Mola Mola Moshi Moshi Lito Yunjuru Juru Joha Fasha Yedi Tola Tola Diri Nisha Fola Ye Jala Jala Momo Fa Mola Mudini Shi Shi Sherno Sherno Ala Shen Fola Shani Fasha Fashan Fola Shaye huru mola huru huru shiri sola sola shiri shiri suru suru putiye putiye putoye putoye midini nola jinsha dini shiny no mono sopaha shitoye sopaha moha shitoye sopaha shitoyu yi sharpalaye sopaha nola jinsha sopaha mola nola sopaha shinu sangamachaye sopaha sopa moha shitoye sopaha jajila shitoye sopaha botomoje shitoye sopaha nola jinsha panchelaye sopaha mopali shangjaye sopaha namo hala danno dolaye namo haliye polu jadi shagolaye sopaha nanshi jandu mandola batoye sopaha. So just allowing these vibrations to come through our body, our heart, our mind. Feeling what happens as we bring our centering, our remembering back to the qualities of awareness. Of our capacity to investigate, experience, to community. The potential and the support for compassionate response in our being. Allowing the support for that to come through. And to allow that to come through our being, sharing these potentials back into this world. And as we do this, noticing how we might settle into our body, touch the earth, and notice the space of listening or awareness within our being. And as we notice the space of awareness or listening. Noticing the tone of that. Is it kindly? Is it grounded? And does it have a sense of receptivity? And is there any taste of fear or aversion in the space of our listening? Now, this isn't to judge, just to notice the kind of spaciousness that's here within us. And to notice if there's any colouring that's coming with it. And if there's a colouring of fear or aversion, then we actually just receive that. Maybe it's that needs to be held. If there's agitation, then we notice there can be a welcoming space in our listening for that. Neither getting caught nor pushing away. Very delicate dance. And if we get caught, what do we need to come back to presence? Maybe we just need to rest with the earth and to feel the space around our body welcoming us. And to come back to the rhythm of the breath. So it's like we're tuning to our listening, to the tone of that, so that we can genuinely receive that which needs to be received in our being, without holding back and without pushing away. And sometimes we need to call on all of our resources to help ourselves to keep balancing. And as we come towards the end of the meditation, allowing ourselves to really attune to where we might feel some connection, or ground, or space, or a tone, steadiness, or fluidity. However slight may be, and allowing that to rest with us as we maybe open our eyes, engage outwardly more. We keep our inner presence. Mm. Mm. So thank you for your presence, for your practice. Any of you who may have seen the send out for the Sunday Sangha, and today I wanted to explore the subject of like objectification, which is a particular way of relating in the world that, as I said in that send out, it feels like, although we've been relating in many modern Western culture has been relating in this way for a long time. There's a surge, and the way in which we're objectifying each other and the harmful consequences of that feels like it's really on the rise with the current US administration, with what's happening in Gaza, the genocide, and with the planet. So it feels like it's a really important topic, and it's one that, even in terms of inner meditation, it feels like it's really good to be aware of it. It feels like something which quite early on in my practice I kind of stumbled over, because I was living at Amaravati Monastery near London, and Ajahn Sumedha, who was the main teacher there at that time, he would teach very much noticing awareness, and I really loved that practice. I really loved that practice, and it's a very, very profound practice. This turning the attention back towards the awareness which is knowing. And he would say that awareness can hold anything. It can hold our deepest fears. It can hold the most profound disturbance. And at a very deep level, I really feel that's true. And so I was kind of like gung-hoing along, practicing with that. And with a lot of fear happening, a lot of very kind of quite a lot of trauma in my system. And after a while of going along and then realizing absolutely nothing was changing. I was just carrying on in the same ways. Actually, I was still very caught in a lot of fear-based habits. There was a lot of trauma in my body. And I realized that I was kind of using awareness to look on at what was happening, but with no connection, no contact, no capacity to actually meet or to meet in the way that can actually help us to transform in practice. And so that actually, it became a very big learning for me, and a big learning of maybe of the importance of other tools in practice. Like, so what is the quality of our awareness? Is it warm? Is it receptive? Is there space? Is there groundedness? So on an inner level, that started to feel very important. And the Buddha talks about a mind that is malleable, that is wieldy, that is steady, without hostility, without ill will. So it's like even on an inner level of meditation or practice, it feels like we can be so conditioned by our habits of fear or objectification that we separate and we make I'm here, nicely held back somewhere, and there's an object that I'm looking at, and there's no contact, and nothing actually transforms. So that's something to be really aware of in practice, and that it's part of our profoundly deep conditioning, I think, and a certain fear of really engaging with our experience. And there's an obvious mirror in the external world. So as I said in the send out, there's an increasing objectification. Like, we are already objectified nature. We take what we want. We just pollute. We act in a very disregarding way. And those forces feel like they're only increasing. As I said, with the current US administration, with the genocide in Gaza, there's a huge amount of just pushing people out of our consciousness, and then the cruelty and the oppression that can happen there, because they're no longer considered within the connected feeling realm as part of the same sense of being, no longer part of the same humanity. So it's a very basic dynamic, and it's the root of a lot of harm, a huge amount of harm. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, and why it's important to me to acknowledge that it happens very much on the outer level, and we can also be doing it on the inner level. And there's some very there are some very good teachings around this in Buddhism. So just to say a little bit more around the outer level. So years ago, I read a book by James Hillman called Kinds of Power. And he talked about a kind of power we can have in the world is efficiency. And he talked about in the Holocaust how that was actually a way of getting people to comply with, like, taking people to the concentration camps. So people were no longer referred to as people, they were shipments or wagons, and we need to process this wagon load before 3 o'clock. So, which is that creating of an object, a distance, what are we going to do with it? And a complete disconnect from the human heart or compassionate response or our wise ways of relating in the world. And obviously this is happening now in relation to Gaza, where the hostage victims of that have happened. They're talked about with names, there's photos, and it's a terrible loss. But the Gazans, even if they're mentioned, it's numbers, and they're collateral damage, they're deaths, it's not murders. So there's something to be really aware of in how this is happening and how things are being portrayed in the media. But it's been happening for a long time, as many cultures know. So colonialism, or our relation to the animal realm, our relation to nature, no honoring of sentiency, no honoring of connection, and the harm that happens to other beings in this, and the harm that actually happens to our own being. So I read a quote ages ago, which I wish I could remember. And I think it was from Martin Luther King, and he was saying something that when we oppress another, actually the harm we do to our own soul, we need to take that into account. So the harm that is happening externally, the harm that is happening internally. And in order to slow down into this, it's a painful process. It's a difficult process, which is, I think, partly why it keeps going. But we can notice, we can start to notice it, we can wake up to it. And I think there are some really important tools in the Buddhist teaching for this. So Bhikkhu Bodhi, many of you have already heard me talking about an article that he wrote in 2014 called Moving from a Culture of Death to a Culture of Life. And in that article, and the reference to that will be at the end of this session. So in the article, it was before the People's Climate March, and he talks about the importance of an external shift, obviously. And in that, he talks about prioritizing preserving the integrity of human beings and the natural world. So coming back to our integrity. He talks about the different constellation of views and values that underlie what we're doing to save the planet, what we're doing to other beings. And he says, the cogency of the views and values that underline the harm that we're doing depend on a process of objectification. So treating everything, peoples, animals, trees, rivers, land, mountains, as objects to be utilized to generate financial gain, to extract, etc. So he really, really points to this, and he points to the importance of coming back to a new model, a new paradigm, a model for a culture of life that can replace the pernicious culture of death. An alternative way of understanding the world, and an alternative set of values conducive to a more integral relationship of people with each other, with nature, and with the cosmos. And he calls this, which I love within the Buddhist teachings, the affirmation of subjectivity. And I love this because we can often take the teaching on non-self, and because we so like to take upon the position, we turn that into an object. And we're like, okay, so there's no self. So everything's impermanent. There's no self. So we kind of abstract ourselves. And in that, it's this process of creating an object again. We've made an object of our non-self. We've made an object of impermanence. And we're like, okay, now I'm cool. I'm out of the mess. And what he's pointing towards in this article is having the courage, having the heart, having the fluidity of mind to recognize between self and non-self, there's this groundless ground of responsiveness, of connectivity, of listening, of non-fear, non-aversion. And this is a really powerful call from Bhikkhu Bodhi, who's one of the most dedicated Pali scholars. So he knows the texts in and out. And he comes to this, So this was in 2014, and there's a very recent article by Naomi Klein, who's not, as far as I don't know, Buddhist, but she's pointing to the same thing. she's talking about facing our situation today. So this article again will be in the references at the end. It's called The Rise of End Time Fascism. And she talks about, in facing this, we need to be able to face clearly what is happening. And we need to come to a different story, not of separation and supremacy, but of interdependence and belonging, not of escaping, but staying faithful to our experience here and how we wish to connect in that, and connecting together in community. So there's this call again and again and again. And obviously, Indigenous cultures have understood these ways for a long time, and then there's been an oppression of that. But again, what is very interesting to me is that in the Buddhist teaching, this is pointed to very directly. So I want to say a bit more about that in the core Buddhist teachings. So in the core Buddhist teachings, we have the teaching on anicca, dukkha, anatta. So impermanence, non-self, suffering, let's say, is very quick translations. And as I was saying earlier, I think it's very easy to take these teachings and to turn them into a position from which we extract ourselves and we make ourselves safe. We're like, okay, I recognize impermanence. Things are non-self, so I can just kind of step away in some way. Excuse me. And actually, there's something about these teachings that is rather asking us to inquire very deeply into the ways of holding our experience. So the Buddha very clearly says that we can't hold on to a position. It's not self or non-self. It's that there's a groundless ground somewhere there where it's like we have this slippery form of existence where we're both individual, we're embodied, and we're deeply connected. We're part of a bigger experience of life, and we can't hold on to that. We can't fix it, but we can explore it. And we can explore where is the best place for this moment to be sitting, where there is both receptivity and responsiveness for the release of suffering. So another core Buddhist teaching, the liberation from suffering is possible. And is this by taking a position outside of it? Or is this actually by finding a way of engaging where there is suffering, it's painful, but we're transforming that experience for the release of suffering to the best of our ability, for the release of greed, hatred, and delusion. So the Heart Sutra, which obviously is a Mahayana text, it says their form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. And we don't like that slipperiness, but there's an invitation to lean into it, I think, and to find our heart's response there. Or the term for the Tathagata, the term for the Buddha, he used the term Tathagata, so like thus gone. It's like we can't get hold of it, but we can sense it. What is the place of presence that we can't grasp with our being, where there's connectedness and responsiveness? And there are so many teachings that help to reshape our vision. So even say the teaching about generosity, which again, many of you know, I really love exploring the teaching on dana or generosity, because we're actually part of a generous world. Our body is given to us, it's nourished by the earth. We're nourished each moment. And the Buddha, so he talked about generosity, he talked about kindness, he talked about compassion, he talked about truthfulness, talked about all these many different qualities that help to bring us into our human realm. And how is my heart relating in a way that is not about objectifying? It's not about going, okay, now I'm a generous person. It's like, what is this quality of heart? How does it come through? And it's a dance. And then there's a very important teaching on, many of you will know the term papancha, which is often translated as proliferation, conceptual proliferation. And there's a very good article by Tanisaro Bhikkhu on this term. And the article is called The Arrow of Objectification. So he talks about this term papancha. And he says it's notoriously hard to translate. And it's somewhat related to thinking. It can mean spread out if you look at the etymology. So like the kind of thinking that it has contact with something and it spreads out. But he says that what is important in this term papancha is not so much the amount or the abundance of our thinking as the categories and perceptions it employs. So the kind of foundations that it's rooting itself in and what it does with that. And he says this is a point that the Buddha makes over and over again. The categories and perceptions of papancha are what cause conflict. And he goes on to talk about papancha, and he says that the basic issue with it is it's when we take a position. So say it's like we have a thought and it's like, I am the thinker. So it's like when we're being aware of something, oh, I'm that awareness. We've taken a position. As soon as we take a position like that, we make ourselves an object. And we depend on other objects. So he says objectification is actually the best translation for this word, papancha. It's from treating yourself and the world around you as objects, rather than as events or processes that the perceptions causing inner and outer conflict derive. So that's a really, really direct teaching. And obviously, in terms of our mental processes, we do need to sometimes hold ourselves as an object and a self. It's like, okay, I want to cultivate these qualities, say. Or if I think about cause and effect, it's like, well, okay, I'm contemplating a series of events that I'm looking at them and like there's cause and effect. So there is a certain skillfulness to that being used sometimes. But in the end, there's this encouragement to look at the processes of our being. And I think when we come to ourselves as processes and interrelated processes, we come to a very, very different way of relating. And we do this from the sense of there's a listening heart. So rather than myself as I am this, it's like there's this listening heart. Can it stay connected? Can it come back to the deeper web of life? And I really love that this happens within the Buddha's larger vision of liberation from suffering. There's a wishing to hold our existence skillfully so that we are liberating ourselves and others from suffering. So we can inhabit a place, inhabit this groundless ground, and even that teaching on the Brahma Viharas. Vihara is dwelling. Where am I dwelling? Are we dwelling with a heart of kindness, with a heart of compassion? We can dwell without grasping. We can dwell with listening. We can dwell with responsiveness. So we're inhabiting, but we're not fixing ourselves and others in a way that we're blocking the heart's responsiveness. So this is a kind of dwelling that it's not just neutral, it's awake to our deepest capacities and to what we wish to perpetuate in the world. So this is a deep resource and it's an encouragement for me right now. to really question the dynamics that are happening internally, externally, to come to a place of listening within, to consider how we're living in relation to our own being and to the larger life that we're part of. And again, there are so many supports for looking into this. So whether it's within the Buddhist teachings, or I also really like the work of Joanna Macy, as you know. And in the book that she wrote with, I can't remember his name, Chris somebody, called Active Hope, there's a lovely quote in there from someone who was part of the deep ecology movement. And he talks about, Arna Nice, he's called, he talks about when we experience more our connected self in the world, which is this, we're a process, we're part of an interrelated world, interdependent world. It's like when we experience that, our sense of ethics changes, our sense of what we want to give changes, of how we wish to relate changes, and not in a forced way, from the sense of actually respect for our deeper being and the being that we're part of. And then Joanna Macy talks about power with, you know, this way of acknowledging our interdependence. So we're not objectifying, we're inhabiting the life that we're part of. Touching into the resource of that interdependence and power with as that which enhances conscious participation in life. So coming out of, I'm here, you're there, object, I treat you as I will. We're deeply connected. How do we enhance conscious participation in life? Which comes back to that coming out of objectification, coming out of the ways in which our mind gets hold of something and just shatters reality in some way. So yeah, there are so many reminders for us to come back to a place of listening in our heart that can see when this objectification happens. It can see when we start to split internally, or it can be more alert to where we're being conditioned into that by the external world, or we're seeing it in very gross ways, but it's painful. And I think the Buddha did teach us to turn around to this reality just in that basic teaching of we're all brothers and sisters in old age, sickness and death. He taught us to turn to that which is painful, but with resource, with our deeper resource, with our awakeness and our rootedness and our groundedness and our embodiedness. So maybe I'll end there with a quote, the quote that I put in the, if I can find it, the quote that I put in the send out, which is again from Prentice Hemphill, who I'm learning a lot from at the moment. So they say, histories of colonization and cultures of objectification have caused us to deny the life in our own bodies and in the earth around us. Embodiment has us remember our own wildness. When we remember ourselves, we become less controllable and more real. So that for me holds true with our embodiment and also with this coming out of objectification in our inner world and coming more back into relationship. So I hope there were some things in there that were helpful. Thank you for your presence and practice. Anything that's not helpful, you can let it flow. And Jilna will post in the chat some of the resources. So there are some really good articles. The Naomi Klein article, the Tanisaro on the arrow of objectification, and really good, the culture of death to a culture of life article from Bhikkhu Bodhi. Thank you, Jilna. And also because we'll end the main session on the hour for anybody who wants to leave at that point. Just so you know, there are some upcoming programs with Sacred Mountain Sangha. So there's a book club starting on the 10th of May called Post-Capitalist. It's with the book Post-Capitalist Philanthropy, which will be really interesting. That's with Emerson and Shani. So the link to the upcoming offerings is there, and also the link to Dana if you'd like to offer a donation to support Sacred Mountain Sangha. So thank you once again for being here. Anybody who needs to leave, then you're welcome to. And anyone who'd like to stay on for comments, sharing, questions, exploration, you're welcome to also. So. So, does anyone have anything you'd like to share or say or question, explore? Carolyn.
Hi, thank you, Sumedha. Something that, a wonderful something this past week and a half, 2 weeks. I think it was Donald Rothberg. He said, get whatever's up, I'm paraphrasing and not quoting him well, but whatever's bugging you, get in your head and live it for a minute. And then drop down to your body, to your heart. And I'm sitting there going, I don't want to do this, but this is not pleasant. So gently I dropped down to my body and I just about fell off my cushion. The difference in the experience, it did not turn the unpleasant experience into anything wonderfully happy and nice, but the drama and the hysteria was taken off. So I'm really, and that's through consistent practice with you and different teachers for the last year and a half, going on 2 years for me. Huge. So thank you. Thank you, Sumedha.
Thank you, Carolyn. That's a really important experience and important sharing and important learning in trust. Also for me, you know, that like slowly learning we can trust to that which feels like it's kind of bashing around and it's kind of bullying us in some way. It's like that, to trust that we can like hold it, as you say, hold it at a distance for a moment, you know, see it and then let it drop in. And actually it's a radically different way of experiencing it, and there's something around trusting there that actually we have capacity, and I think a lot of the teachings around grounding and resourcing, they're so important because we're slowly expanding our capacity, because we might to hold in that way and to know that we can find some safety and to come back, but in an engaged way, in a connected way. So really beautiful. Thank you, Carolyn. Yeah. Deb, hi.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me all right? I just want to say thank you. I so appreciate the framing and bringing this out and speaking, you know, to what's happening and possibility of approaching and or living through and not ignoring it. Yeah, just the framing and saying what's true and naming these things. So for me, essential. Thank you, Sumedha.
Thank you, Deb. Yeah. It's kind of the first noble truth, isn't it? It's like kind of like, and actually for me, there's a very deep encouragement in the Buddha's teaching to which, yeah, it's like not easy to turn to that which is painful, you know, and obviously sometimes it's overwhelming, but if we can turn to it, then there's a chance of starting to unknot and to understand how the relationship may be different. Which I think, yeah.
Well, please continue. What you think?
Well, just that I think it's something actually very radical within the Buddhist teachings, you know, and that it's also very relevant to what's happening in the world, because it's like how much we can actually meet what is happening within us. How to say it? It's like we need huge resource. We actually need huge resource. And so there's something about the teachings that can both help us to recognize our vastness and our resource, and that we can turn around to what are painful realities. And that's for me there in the very core Buddhist teachings, you know, the teaching that we have that which is awake within us, that we have community, that we can explore reality, and, you know, in the basic teachings to turn around to like our vulnerability, basically, which is what we turn away from when we objectify. We kind of separate things out and like, okay, that's there. We don't like the vulnerable. We don't like the groundless, you know, but we can. So yeah.
And maybe there's people who speak to this, but do you think that the practice is kind of an antidote to the fear, hatred, and delusion, because people turn away from that, and that's not able to see their own suffering, and it comes out as objectification?
Yeah. I think it's a way of transforming, it's a way of not following that stream. So yes, an antidote. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Deb. Anybody else like to say anything, share anything?
Thank you, Sumedha, for bringing this up. It's so relevant, and it's so easy to not be able to touch. I mean, to be able to see the interconnection, because there is a lot of fear. There is a lot of fear of, for me anyway, and at the same time, we do feel it anyway. So, but the practice is just so relevant.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I'm in France. I'm not in the US, and the level of alarm that I feel in my, you know, is like, it's like everything is going off, and I'm not in a situation of immediate danger. You know, I'm not, and so for me, there's something about acknowledging the reality, and acknowledging the reality for also people who are more impacted, and not turning away from that feels very, very important. And at the same time, there's something about recognizing our depth of connectedness and depth of resource that is so important as well, because it could so quickly lead to like a destructive overwhelm, if you like. So
Right.
yeah, so I think there needs to be a lot of care in that, and a lot of care for each other, and not losing touch with it, not losing heart, not losing this sense of possibility, you know. And not losing.
And
Yeah, go on.
No, it feels like this is what we should be practicing, together and separately, this is the challenge of the day. And
yeah.
yeah, and how to stay in our seat and not be swept by the horror or the judgment. So that's, I mean, I'm very, very, very interested, and I would love to have dedicated meditations on that, because it
Right.
is a
Yeah.
practice.
Right. Right. So that's a really, really good suggestion. So maybe we should, we should do something to bring that into being, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think even when we do bring back the morning chants, it would be
Uh-huh.
perfect to just do that, because that is what the call is for today.
Yeah.
Not to leave because it is horrific,
Yeah.
but learn how to
Exactly.
be in that with ourselves.
Yeah.
So thank you. You've
Yeah.
given me a lot to think about.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Martha. And I've definitely registered that. Let's try make something happen with a
All right.
meditation, more chanting meditation. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have something to share. Hi everyone, I'm Stace. I trying to move my self view out of the way, so okay. I just wanted to thank everyone for being here, and thank you, Sumedha, for the teachings. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. I'm about 20 years into practice, and I'm also a somatic psychotherapist, so I'm sort of in these waters of the body and processing trauma through the body all day and all night, it seems, even in the middle of the night. And the level of terror and grief and rage is so overwhelming that I just couldn't do it I can't meet it without a group like this. Like, I've been coming regularly, often with my camera off, because I have an insane toddler who, like, enough said about that. But I just thank you. It's too much to bear on our own, and I'm very moved by this group regularly, and not always able to participate with my voice or my presence, but I'm here, and thank you. So.
Really beautiful. Thank you, Stace. Really, really important, as you say, to have these spaces where we can, or for me also, so like for me, like this kind of space is really, really important, where we're like, for me, it's like we're rooting down together into what we have as potential, and we're helping each other to do that. So yeah, thank you. Okay. Does anyone else want to share anything? Oh, yes, Mia. Voting day for Canadians tomorrow. Please send courage for us to overcome the Conservatives. Absolutely. Okay, let's take the last few minutes to settle and ground, feel into our resource. So it's really coming back to the space of our own presence that is always here within us. We might get overwhelmed, we might lose touch. It's like the sky within us. Quietly, spaciously present, listening. And really also taking the time to feel into what might resource our being. So moments of quiet, connection, music, whatever it might be. And remembering to resource. We can do that. Tuning to the deep forces that are part of us, the awake heart. Forces of compassion and wise response, Kuan Yin. Nature that we're part of. Feeling that resource here with us. And feeling also with each breath we give back out into this world. What might we want to share? Remembering each moment with each breath, we can breathe in resource and we can remind ourselves of what we want to give out. In our actions of body, speech, and mind. Space in our heart of listening and response. With compassion to our own being and to the life that we're part of. Thank you. Thank you deeply also, Jilna, for all your support and practice. Yeah. Okay, well, go well. Blessings.